Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, U.S. trade talks with China just wrapped up in Geneva. Treasury Secretary Bessent said the two countries have achieved substantial progress, while the White House says a deal has been reached. Details on what we know so far. Plus, two guests join us to explore what a U.S.-China trade deal could look like and how markets will react. The final American hostage still alive in Gaza, set for imminent release. The update straight from the Hamas terrorist group. Could spending more time in green spaces give our immune systems a boost or even reduce the risk of heart disease or stroke? NTD's Stefania sat down with Brendon Fallon, host of Epoch TV's Vital Signs Health program, for more. And a unique parade brings color and beauty to the streets of New York City while sharing a powerful message of human rights and resilience. NTD's Ning spoke with practitioners of a peaceful meditation practice to find out what World Falun Dafa Day means to them.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Details on the high-stakes U.S.-China trade talks in Geneva this weekend. After 2 days of negotiation in Switzerland, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer said earlier today that they have achieved substantial progress with Chinese officials. A White House press release says a deal has been reached, but didn't give details. President Trump also posted on Truth Social last night, saying the U.S. team hailed, quote, great progress. However, the Chinese side stayed silent on the outcome as of our airtime. NTD's Flora Hua brings us the report.
In a press release published after the talks, Secretary Bessent said he's very happy to see the progress that has been made, calling the talks productive. He also said that he and Trade Representative Greer both informed President Trump of the full details on Saturday night. According to Bessent, the Chinese delegation included Vice Premier He Lifeng as well as two vice ministers. Greer echoed Bessent's remarks, saying a lot of groundwork has been set. He also described the Chinese trade negotiators as, quote, very tough and they worked very diligently. The U.S. delegation said more details about the trade talk will come out on Monday morning. As of what we can expect from the talks, Commerce Secretary Ning said this on Fox News.
Well, Secretary Bessent has made it clear one of his objectives is to de-escalate. 145% and 125% are really, those are kind of tariffs where you're not trading with each other. So he's there to see if we can reset the conversation. And he's at it right now, so I'm going to leave it to him of how he deals with it. But that's the objective, to de-escalate.
On Truth Social, President Trump posted last night calling the talks a total reset between the two countries. The president also said that he wished to see China open up to American businesses. Ahead of the trade talks, Trump expressed interest in lowering U.S. tariffs on China to 80% in the long term, but said it was up to Secretary Bessent. Trump also said on Friday he might speak to the Chinese regime leader after the trade talks, depending on how Secretary Bessent advised him. For now, most Chinese goods coming into the U.S. face 145% tariffs, with certain products facing up to 245% tariffs. In retaliation, China imposed 125% tariffs on most U.S. goods, with several exemptions. Flora Hua, NTD News.
And stay with us for deeper analysis on the critical U.S.-China talks and what they mean for global trade later on tonight's show. The Hamas terrorist group has just announced it will soon release the last known living American hostage in Gaza. His name is Edan Alexander. Hamas said his release comes as part of the lead-up to a future ceasefire. Hamas said it has been in contact with the White House during the past few days. Also in the Middle East, the U.S. just wrapped up its fourth round of nuclear talks with Iran. A spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs described them as difficult but useful, both for understanding each other's positions and finding realistic ways to address differences. In an ex-post, he said Oman would announce the next round of talks. We're at the end of what shaped up to be a busy week on Capitol Hill. Several President Trump's cabinet members answered questions from lawmakers about their work so far and future budget requests. On the House floor, several bills countering the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration in U.S. education and its attack on human rights. Here's NTD's Melina Weisskopf with this week's roundup.
I ask you to join.
Lawmakers started off this week with a unanimous voice vote on a bill protecting Falun Dafa, a widespread spiritual practice rooted in the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. The bill, called the Falun Gong Protection Act, sanctions CCP officials engaged in the regime's forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners,
turning them into a human inventory for a state-run organ harvesting system. This is barbaric.
No more ignoring it. No more looking the other way. No more just letting it go while you continue to buy communist Chinese goods and services.
I will continue to push to get this passed through the Senate, to get it signed by the president, and will always fight to protect religious freedom for every one of my constituents.
Later in the week, the House passed the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act, a broader bill that punishes those who engage in the abuse. It blocks perpetrators' U.S. property and stops their engagement in U.S. transactions.
They are murdering tens of thousands of young people, Uyghurs, Falun Gong practitioners, and some others, in order to steal their organs.
Another China-related bill on the floor this week restricts the Department of Homeland Security from funding colleges and universities that have ties to Confucius Institutes or other Chinese entities of concern.
The CCP efforts to infiltrate America's universities are intended to manipulate curriculum, suppress academic freedom, and monitor Chinese students here in the United States.
As for China's cyber attacks on American infrastructure, the acting director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency answered questions from lawmakers.
They are doing it for espionage, they're doing to steal our intellectual property, and they are getting into our critical infrastructure, and they are waiting. And they are waiting to disrupt or destroy our critical infrastructure at the time and place of their choosing.
It was one of several high-profile hearings. Several of Trump's cabinet officials testified about leading their departments and next year's budget requests. The Trump administration wants Congress to cut the FBI's budget by $500 million, a proposal that FBI Director Kash Patel initially rejected, but later said he'll make it work.
The skinny budget is wrong.
The skinny budget is a proposal, and I'm working through the appropriations process to explain why we need more than what has been proposed. We can't have waste, fraud, and abuse, but I'll make the mission work on whatever budget we're given.
Over in the DHS, the president wants a $43 billion budget increase. Secretary Kristi Noem told lawmakers that her priorities in the department are on the Coast Guard, TSA technology upgrades, and border security.
More agents for CBP, more ICE agents and beds so that we can remove illegal criminals out of this country and dangerous individuals that are threatening our public safety. And then also going forward and looking at how we conduct operations on training our law enforcement officers.
On the Senate floor, lawmakers confirmed the new Social Security Administration commissioner, and senators failed to advance a bill to regulate stablecoins. Democrats blocked it, arguing Republicans rushed it and the final version wasn't strong enough. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
In lighter news, a happy Mother's Day message from Washington. Beyond flowers and visits home, the Trump administration says it's celebrating the selfless service of every mother in America. In a statement, the White House commended mothers across the country for playing a crucial role in raising the next generation of proud Americans. The first ever Mother's Day church service was held in 1908. Congress formally recognized the holiday 6 years later in 1914, dubbing the second Sunday in May each year as Mother's Day. Russia and Ukraine have agreed to hold direct talks for the first time since the war started, but Kyiv wants to go a step further and begin a 30-day ceasefire tomorrow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pozdar has an update on the peace talks and the timeline of latest developments.
It is for Russia, it's for Putin to come to the table for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire.
Western allies on Saturday calling on Russia and Ukraine to accept an unconditional 30-day truce starting Monday. Ukraine accepted the offer, but later on Saturday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he wants to hold direct talks first.
We propose to begin direct talks with Ukraine next Thursday, May 15th in Istanbul.
French President Emmanuel Macron was among the Western leaders criticizing Putin's response, saying there can be no negotiations while weapons are speaking. There can be no dialogue if at the same time civilians are being bombed.
President Putin is open for peace negotiations.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, meanwhile, telling ABC News that he thinks Ukraine is trying to escape negotiations.
We thought that President Trump was going to use his enormous influence over Ukraine to get Ukraine closer to the idea of negotiations. Ukraine is trying to escape from negotiations.
President Trump commented on Russia's proposal for talks on Sunday, saying Ukraine should agree to this immediately. At least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. And if it is not, European leaders and the US will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. Just minutes later on Sunday, Zelensky accepted the proposal for talks, saying, "We await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday." Arian Pastar, NTD News.
An update on the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan. The ceasefire appears to be holding after earlier accusations it was violated. The ceasefire was first announced by President Trump in a Truth Social post on Saturday morning. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the ceasefire came after he and Vice President Vance spoke for 2 days with Indian and Pakistani leaders. President Trump posted another message praising the two sides for coming to the table. Pakistan praised the White House for its help. India has mostly pointed to its own efforts as the reason fighting paused. The Kashmir territory has been a site of military tension between India and Pakistan for decades. Each rules part of Kashmir, but both claim all of the region. The most recent conflict began after gunmen killed members of a tourist group in an Indian-ruled city in Kashmir. At least 25 Indian citizens and 1 Nepali died. India accused Pakistan of supporting cross-border terrorism. Pakistan denied involvement. Reports are detailing a special gift to the U.S. from the royal family in Qatar. It's a 747-8 luxury jet worth an estimated $400 million. And the plan is to retrofit the aircraft for use as Air Force One. According to a Qatari official, the aircraft is being gifted from the Qatari Ministry of Defense to the Pentagon. The official outlined it as a government-to-government transaction instead of a personal gift to President Trump. After he leaves office, ownership of the plane will reportedly shift to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation. A formal announcement is expected in the coming days. Trump will depart Monday for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, the first major foreign trip since he began his second term. Coming up, the U.S. and China wrap up high-stakes trade talks in Geneva. 2 guests join us to explore what a U.S.-China trade deal could look like and how markets will react. And could spending more time in green spaces give our immune systems a boost or even reduce the risk of heart disease or stroke? NTD's Stefania sat down with Brendon Fallon, host of Epoch TV's Vital Signs Health program, for more. Details in just a minute after this quick break.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills, skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Hurry in and shop Mathis Home today during the Monumental Savings Event for deals in every department. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Come and see the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms at the lowest prices ever. You can get it all in stock with fast and free delivery. Even an incredible selection of patio and outdoor furniture so you can enjoy every part of your home. For the best service, selection, and value, don't miss out on the Monumental Savings Event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Spending time in nature or other green spaces is a refreshing escape, but could it help strengthen our immune systems and even ward off disease too? NTD's Stefania sat down with Brendon Fallon, host of Epoch TV's Vital Signs Health program, to discuss.
Great to see you, Steph. Yeah, it's springtime. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. The flowers are blooming. What better time to get out there and get some nature happening? And especially here in New York, great time to get out into Central Park. We kind of intuit that we feel healthier when we do this, but we may not entirely understand why that is. I spoke to a very accomplished doctor with 4 board certifications, Dr. Roger Schwelt. His certifications include critical care, internal medicine, and during the pandemic, he was getting patients out into sunlight to help them with their COVID symptoms and saw dramatic results. So I asked him, what is it about getting out in nature that produces these kinds of results? This is what he said.
We talked about last time the near-infrared radiation benefit, that sunlight is also stimulating production of vitamin D. I've read that there's something beyond that, that actually if you're going out into nature, if you're out there among the trees and the leaves, and that there's some added benefit to that environment. Could you speak a bit about that, Dr. Schwelt? What is the evidence of that, and what is the mechanism involved?
Yeah, it's like a package deal. So when you go outside, not only are you being exposed to infrared light, ultraviolet light, but you're also breathing fresh air. That's very important. When you're inside of a house, there are fumes that can build up, and we have a whole science based on this. Dr. Joseph Allen talks about sick buildings. And when you're outside, you're not going to be exposed to the gases and things that don't get ventilated very well in these old buildings. You're getting fresh air. So fresh air is one thing that's very important. Sunlight is another thing that's very important. When you're outside, you tend to do more. You tend to exercise. You tend to have the blood circulate, which is very, very important. The other thing that happens is if you're around a lot of trees, as you mentioned, there are chemicals that the trees actually give off. This has been well studied. We actually highlighted that on our MedCram channel a number of years ago during the pandemic, at the height of it. Eucalyptus. Eucalyptus gives off a number of what are called phytosides, which are chemicals in the trees that we can smell aromatically, but that when we do and it enters into our body and goes, it actually activates the innate immune system. We have very good evidence that this is what's happening. And not only that, but when we're around trees, the trees are highly reflective of that infrared light, which we've shown to be so beneficial in the mitochondria. So it's a package deal. And unfortunately, when we're trying to figure out if one thing particularly is what's causing the benefit, it almost works a little bit against us in a sense, because we can't tell when people go outside, is it the fresh air that's benefiting them? Is it the sunlight that's benefiting them? Is it the infrared light from the trees? Is it the phytosides? We're not sure, but I'll tell you this, we have very good evidence very good evidence that people who go outside into green spaces have many, many health benefits, including lower blood pressure, less preterm labor, lower diastolic blood pressure. Urinary cortisol levels are lower. People are less stressed out.
This also brings to mind studies that show that getting your hands out in the dirt can actually help improve the gut microbiome, and of course healthy gut microbiome influences the brain health, and with the gut-brain axis, your mood, your cognition, all these other influences. But for people out there who are wondering, okay, how can I put this information to use? What have you learned that you would say is, you know, a bare minimum good daily practice to reap the benefits here?
As far as getting out in nature, I think in terms of sunlight specifically, Dr. Schwelt has talked about if you want to go out and get sunlight, the best time to do that is during sunrise and sunset, because at that time you have less of a danger of getting sunburned, because you have this mix of the infrared radiation and also the ultraviolet radiation, and the infrared will actually mitigate the potential damage of the ultraviolet radiation. So you're getting the benefit of both of those things at that time.
And you've been delving into this particular topic of the benefits of nature quite a bit. You've got some more research to show us, I believe.
That's right. I mean, I thought this was interesting in the case of people in a similar situation to ourselves, where we're living in a concrete jungle. What happens when they suddenly have a massive tree exposure? And this is what Dr. Schwelt talks about here, a particular experiment that was done in Kentucky.
Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here, there was a study that was just published in a study that was done in Louisville, Kentucky. There's about a 4 square mile area in Louisville, Kentucky, where it was, this is middle class, lower middle class, not a lot of trees. This is what they did. They measured all of their highly sensitive CRP levels. This is a blood test that is a surrogate for the risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke, okay? They measured it. And then what they did was for the next 2 to 3 years afterwards, they brought in about 8,000 trees, mature trees. They didn't plant seeds. They brought in mature trees with leaves, branches, and they rechecked everybody's CRP levels, which is, again, is a surrogate. And there was about a 13% drop in CRP levels. All they did was plant trees. This is really amazing, because up to this point, people would talk about green spaces and they say, well, maybe it's because people who live in green spaces have a higher socioeconomic class. Well, maybe it's because they're getting outside and they're exercising more. I think this showed very clearly that there was no drive to get outside. There's no drive to exercise. This is simply planting trees dropped everybody's CRP on average by 13%. That's actually a large amount. It's about the same amount that you would see with regular exercise.
Wow. Okay, now last 30 seconds. What kind of action steps can we draw from that comment just here and that research?
I think not everyone has the luxury of being able to get out, get much nature. And one thing I did ask Dr. Schwelt, just from my own curiosity, is there any benefit just to having that visual of trees? And he didn't know specific studies, but he said he had seen something along the lines of certain lights being used in hospitals to mimic sunlight. And I always remember visiting a museum prison and being struck by the murals of forests and everything that were painted there. And I imagine maybe there is something just to having that, to seeing that does something for the psychology and makes us feel healthier.
Certainly a good start. Thank you so much for your time today, Brendon Fallon.
Thank you so much.
And for more details, check out Epoch TV's Vital Signs with Brendon Fallon. The program zooms in on health and wellness in everyday life, connecting the dots for the big picture of our composite health. Find it on epochtv.com by clicking the Talk Shows tab. From Dodger Stadium to Venice Beach, Los Angeles will take center stage in 2028. Officials revealed this week where the Olympic and Paralympic ceremonies will be held. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from Los Angeles.
We're here at the iconic LA Coliseum, where history will be made once again. Mayor Karen Bass and LA 28 officials announced that this venue, along with SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, will serve as the official venues for the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games.
On the 14th of July, 2028, just 1,162 days from today, who's counting, the Olympic opening ceremonies will be a dual celebration between the LA Memorial Coliseum and the stadium in Inglewood, marking the beginning of the largest Olympics ever held. On July 30th, 2028, the Olympic closing ceremonies will then be held right here at LA Memorial Coliseum.
The Coliseum had previously hosted events for the 1932 and 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles.
This will become the first venue in history to host events for the third Olympic Games. In 2028, the whole world will watch as we make history yet again.
LA20 announced Olympic baseball will be held at Dodger Stadium, beach volleyball in Long Beach, and surfing off the San Clemente coast. Squash makes its Olympic debut at Universal Studios Courthouse Square, famous for Back to the Future.
From the triathlon at Venice Beach to skateboarding in the San Fernando Valley, from boxing downtown to baseball at Dodger Stadium and track and field here at Expo Park, the entire city will be on display.
For the first time in LA, the Paralympics will kick off at SoFi Stadium on August 15, 2028, marking the largest competition in Paralympic history. The closing ceremony returns to the Coliseum on August 27th.
Our Olympic venues highlight the very best of Los Angeles, the Southern California region, and America, which will be on display for the world stage, welcoming 15,000 athletes and millions of fans from around the world.
From Venice Beach to Dodger Stadium and beyond, Los Angeles is preparing to welcome the world in 2028, with the Olympic torch set to be lit in LA once again. Reporting from the city of Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Coming up, an exhibit highlighting the history of America on display at the Library of Congress. It puts George Washington and King George in the spotlight and offers a brand new perspective on America's founding. And the U.S. and China wrap up high-stakes trade talks in Geneva. Two guests join us to explore what a U.S.-China trade deal could look like and how markets will react. That and more in just a minute.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer. And your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The U.S. and China wrapped up high-stakes trade talks in Geneva, Switzerland. The talks lasted several hours on Saturday and spilled over to Sunday. The White House is announcing a deal, but details remain scarce. Treasury Secretary Bessent saying a complete briefing will be held Monday. Speculation is rife on what's in the deal and what happened during the talks. Joining us now to explore are 2 guests, Daniel Lacaille, Chief Economist at Tressis and author of Freedom or Equality, and Adam Savitt, Director of the China Policy Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. Thank you both so much for being here. Daniel, starting with you, the White House saying the 2 sides struck a trade deal following marathon talks in Geneva without providing details. Treasury Secretary Bessent saying there will be a complete briefing Monday. What can we expect in a trade deal? What areas are you looking out for?
I think that it's a very important thing because it's been very fast. And therefore, what we can expect is something similar to what we saw with the UK-US trade deal, i.e. a ballpark agreement of basic elements that would entail agriculture, also some manufactured goods, certainly the automotive industry, the technology industry, and lifting non-trade barriers from the side of China. So I would guess that those would be the main elements, but obviously we'll get the details tomorrow. I don't think that there would be many more initially, and those would lead to subsequent agreements afterwards.
And Adam, President Trump said before this weekend's meeting that imprisoned Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai would be brought up in the talks. How likely do you think the U.S. side leveraged trade talks to press issues like human rights and fentanyl to strike a deal?
Let me first say it's incredibly important that President Trump recognized Jimmy Lai and human rights in general as an important point to raise. I believe they did probably raise it, but I don't believe it factored into the final deal. And that's because to properly address those questions, the CCP would have to radically change the way they do business within their own country. Their restrictions on free speech and expression in Hong Kong, their treatment of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, which involves hundreds of thousands of people involved in slave labor. And I believe that President Trump has the right idea with fentanyl, for example. He was very clear that that 10% and then 20% was separate from the main tariffs. And China has recognized that as well, because their reciprocal tariff is 125%, not the 145% on our side that includes the fentanyl. So I'm glad it was brought up, but I don't think it was key to this agreement.
And zooming out a bit here, Daniel, what do you make of the length of time of these talks over 10 hours on Saturday, and then they continue today to achieve what Bessent is calling substantial progress, and the White House fact sheet is calling a deal?
Well, I think that the reason why we have seen such a quick and I would say that detailed process is because the situation for China was getting very, very challenging after the UK deal. We must remember that the UK-US trade deal cemented a position for the United Kingdom in terms of the supply chains that would compromise a lot of the elements that help China maintain a very strong exporting position. And at the same time, we saw that exports to the United States from China fell by 1/5 in April. All those elements added to the deflationary spiral that China is suffering have probably made the Chinese delegation be very diligent about reaching something that could be presented as something that is positive for everybody and that immediately lifts the challenges for the exporters, for ports, and also for the freight carriers.
And Adam, to your earlier point, given the history of the Chinese regime not playing by international rules and norms, how do you see Trump 2.0 handling the Chinese regime this time around when it comes to ensuring follow through? For instance, Beijing did not keep their end of the deal during the first Trump administration.
That's correct. As far as the phase one trade deal.
Oh, sorry, but sorry.
That was enacted in 2020. Everyone kind of knew that China was not living up to their end of that bargain, but formally, this was not addressed until President Trump's America First trade policy was released in January of this year, and the USTR came back with a report just last month underlining the fact that China did not hold up their end of the bargain. So we need something different this time. I would hope to see something like actual punitive measures. Let's say if China doesn't come through with initial good faith steps, so we could have a snapback to the 145% tariffs. Let's use trust but verify to harken back to the Soviet Union, the Cold War, meaning that there should be a presumption that China is not fulfilling its end of the bargain. And we just need to look at its track record, not just the phase one deal, but going back 20 to 30 years, going back to its obligations under the WTO that it was supposed to follow for all the advantages it would get for the WTO. And number three, just look at the evidence in front of our eyes. One example, the 2018-19 tariffs that went on China, we saw a doubling or tripling of the trade deficit with Vietnam. Why did that happen? Because they used Vietnam as a pass-through. So let's look at evidence like that right in front of our eyes and make the judgment before a formal report on the matter might have time to be released.
And Daniel, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I fully agree that the Trump administration is not just going to reach a deal and let it pass without a very strict compliance. I think that this is all going to be about delivering and strengthening that deal. Same with the UK. If you think about the way that these deals have been signed, is to start with very significant things that can be monitored very, very quickly. And second, to continue adding elements that include all of those factors that prior have created some tension. In the case of the UK, it was the non-tariff barriers. The UK increased its non-tariff barriers dramatically since 2017. And also, in the case of China, compliance with these measures is very important. The Trump administration has already presented three elements that they're going to be working with. Number one is that the entire analysis of the goods that come and go from the United States is going to be looked at from one single agency. Number two is that we will get a very specific analysis of when any company is implementing measures of, for example, washing the origin. Origin washing is one of the challenges, as my colleague was mentioning. And number three, punitive measures if there's no compliance. I think that all those three things will be there in some shape or form.
Daniel, as you mentioned, of course, last week, the U.S. and U.K. struck a deal. Markets buoyed a little bit at the news, but all eyes were on the trade talks with China. How do you expect markets to react at the news of a U.S.-China deal?
Oh, everybody was very, very concerned about the difficulty of a Chinese trade deal. So this is very, very important, and it's likely to be a positive surprise. Futures are already indicating that markets are going to react positively, but it's likely to be also what people perceive from the details, no? So in general, the entire market was already accepting the idea that there would be trade deals with Japan, with South Korea, maybe with the European Union as well, probably more challenging. And the one that seemed almost impossible was the Chinese one. So the fact that it's the second is something that is very, very important.
And Adam, on that note, what areas are you watching out for, especially as we get more information in the morning?
Particularly,
yes, I mean, I'd be looking at...
sorry, I jumped again.
The issues that were already raised, the human rights end, the fentanyl end, how and if they would be integrated into this agreement, and as Daniel mentioned as well, these other corollary issues that are not directly tariff related, but IP theft, industrial espionage. President Trump specifically mentioned U.S. access to Chinese markets, and that underlines a theme of his presidency, that is reciprocity. But I will be remiss to not mention a concept that's going around in national security circles, and I wouldn't be surprised if it starts popping up in the press, depending on the shape of this deal, and that's the concept of the grand bargain. That is a fear of our allies, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and that's a concept that, President Trump is so transactional that if he finds an economic accommodation with China, that would involve abandoning Taiwan, to China militarily or just through political influence. I would say that is very unlikely, and that's because President Trump was the first one to recognize China as a singular threat. In his first administration, he enacted those tariffs, which at the time were revolutionary and changed the geostrategic picture. And I don't think those fears are well founded. I think China will continue to be treated as a singular threat.
Daniel Lake, Adam Savin, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Coming up, an exhibit highlighting the history of America on display at the Library of Congress. It puts George Washington and King George in the spotlight and offers a brand new perspective on America's founding. And a unique parade brings color and beauty to the streets of New York City while sharing a powerful message of human rights and resilience. NTD's Sherry Ning spoke with practitioners of a peaceful meditation practice to find out what World Falun Dafa Day means to them. That and more in just a minute.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
And we have some breaking news. President Trump says tomorrow morning at the White House he will sign a major executive order. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 30% to 80%, adding that prices will rise throughout the world in order to equalize. He also stated that he will establish a most favored nations policy, meaning, in his words, the U.S. will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. An exhibit drawing parallels between George Washington and King George III is on display at the Library of Congress. The exhibit, titled The Two Georges, offers a brand new perspective on the history of America's founding. NTD's Sam Wong has more.
Two men on opposite sides in the American Revolutionary War meeting face to face for the first time. At the Library of Congress, an exhibit featuring the history of George Washington and King George III is attracting tourists from everywhere. It's the birth of America from a perspective you've never heard before.
People know about George Washington, of course, and King George III, but there's a lot of myths about these two men. They were born just 6 years apart, so they were contemporaries. They met many of the same people, they read many of the same books, and they were both fascinated in science and agriculture, and we tell that story in the exhibition.
Toggling between democracy and monarchy, The Two Georges takes us through the lives of both figures behind closed doors. The exhibit includes historic artifacts from the Windsor Castle and the Library of Congress. History shows it doesn't matter whether you're the King of England or the President of the United States. You could get tangled up in an interesting family dynamic just like the rest of us.
George Washington didn't have any biological children, but he had some stepchildren who he helped raise. And this letter is actually from Jackie's teacher, and he's complaining about George Washington's stepson, saying he's indolent. I think it's interesting because both Georges actually dealt with who they considered rebellious children.
For General Washington, the American Revolutionary War was full of challenges both at home and abroad, from commanding the Continental Army to seeking support from France. But in terms of espionage, our founding father was well ahead of his time.
This is the actual code book that George Washington used during the Revolution to decode letters that were sent to him about the movement of British troops. General Washington there was number 711, 711. So not 007, but 711 was his code word.
The Two Georges will remain on display through March of 2026. Visitors get to check out the collection and celebrate the 250th anniversary of America's independence. Sam Wong, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
The Old Farmer's Almanac has a prediction for summer weather conditions across the U.S., and the temperatures could rival last year's intense heat. The classic series that started as a tool for farmers and gardeners reveals predictions for summer 2025 weather. This year, it says very hot and dry weather is in store for most of the mainland U.S., while parts of the Midwest, Northeast, and Florida should prepare for rain. Last year's temperatures soared to record-breaking highs across the country, and this year could be even hotter. Although the Northwest U.S. are instead predicted to stay cool and dry. Alaska and Hawaii are also expected to deviate. Dry conditions are expected for the northwest half of Alaska, while the southeast half sees rain. In Hawaii, cool conditions are expected over the smaller islands, while heat is forecast for the Big Island, with lots of rain expected for the whole state. The Old Farmer's Almanac has been in publication since 1792. It says its predictions are 80% accurate and use a mix of solar science, climatology, and meteorology for its forecasts. Thousands took to the streets of Manhattan Friday to celebrate World Falun Dafa Day, marking the anniversary of a spiritual practice centered on moral teachings and gentle exercises. But behind the music and banners are stories of resilience and reminders of ongoing persecution in China. NTD's Sherry Ning was at the parade and spoke with Falun Dafa practitioners about what the day means to them.
Here in Manhattan today, thousands of people have gathered for a parade to celebrate World Falun Dafa Day. Practitioners of Falun Dafa marched down 42nd Street in the rain, holding banners saying Falun Dafa is good and truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, which are the core principles of the spiritual practice. I spoke with practitioners in the parade about their experiences with Falun Dafa, which is also called Falun Gong.
Falun Dafa taught me the concept of looking inside myself to improve myself. And this looking inside and measuring myself with the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance has really helped me to improve as a person, my growth has been exponential. It has been amazing.
In 1999, the Chinese Communist Party started a brutal persecution of the practice, which still goes on today.
My father is at prison at this moment. He was arrested 2021, and on the same day, there is more than 10 people arrested at the same time in the same city. So why they arrest my father? The reason very simple, because my father helped my mother to pass out flyers about the truth of Falun Gong and the persecution.
The young Falun Dafa practitioner warns that the CCP's persecution doesn't pertain just to Falun Gong.
Chinese Communist country is not only a threat to the Chinese people, but a threat to the free world. We have to take action before it's too late. Someday and somehow, the CCP will come to our door in the United States.
And in a story another practitioner shared from his graduate school days, the CCP's influence has been present in the U.S. for some time.
The president of Chinese Student Association in my school and told me that the Chinese consulate in Chicago asked him to collect the names of those who practice Falun Dafa on campus. This also told us there are a lot of Chinese spies in the United States and other countries.
World Falun Dafa Day is May 13th, marking the anniversary of the practice's first public introduction in 1992, as well as the birthday of its founder, Mr. Li Hongzhi. Practitioners cherish the opportunity to celebrate the occasion.
Today in China, this kind of parade is unable to be seen because China suppresses the freedom of belief. And overseas, with the opportunity we're given and that we're able to celebrate joyfully with the rest of the people here, I would like everyone to know the significance and impact of today.
Reporting from New York, Ning, NTD News.
One of the premier 3D entertainment experiences in the world. That's how theatergoers in Hollywood, California describe Shen Yun. The performing arts company just wrapped up its successful run there, taking the stage 3 times at the Dolby Theater and showcasing its signature blend of classical Chinese dance, live music, and storytelling. NTD is a proud media sponsor of Shen Yun, a company dedicated to reviving 5,000 years of traditional Chinese culture from before communism. Here's a look at the highlights.
The show is one of the premier 3D entertainment experiences in the world, I think. I didn't even know that was possible. The timing was perfect, because if you don't get the timing right, it won't work.
The symbiotic relationship between the people on stage and the screen were done with such uniformity. I couldn't even tell sometimes when it was happening. It was incredible. To see something like that, you'd see usually on like a movie screen, CGI effects, but on a stage with actual performers, it's like nothing you've ever seen before.
It was exquisite. It was divine. I got to learn something about the culture, but the lines and the exquisite, the costuming, the devotion, what it takes. I know what it takes to do that kind of artistry. And it's a lifetime of commitment, and it's so exquisite.
Shen Yun draws its inspiration from 5 millennia of ancient Chinese civilization, and each performance is a journey through China's rich heritage and ancient wisdom. Theatergoers took note of the values brought to life on stage.
I think those values like peace and respect and dignity are something that we need a lot more of in today's society. And the fact that they're showing that and promoting that on stage is something that not only you love seeing, but also taking away from a piece like this and going out into the world and spreading that kind of message. I think Shen Yun is doing an amazing job at that.
The humanity, the spirituality, civility, love, going deeper within and connecting with the world outside, and all of those good things, I think, that we forget. And when we come to a show like this, it reminds us, know that you are touching people at large and people are being affected. It's not just that they're coming to have a beautiful experience. They're actually leaving feeling fulfilled, feeling positive, feeling full of hope. There are a lot of messages of hope out there.
Thank you for your heart. Thank you for sharing your soul with us. I felt it. I really did. And that's what I'm taking with me, their heart and the beauty of their soul that they shared with us today.
This is NTD News, Hollywood, California.
Shen Yun will perform its last shows today, May 11th, in Philadelphia, Nashville, Providence, Rhode Island, and Paris, France. For details, visit shenyun.com/tickets. Across the pond, the UK just wrapped up Hedgehog Appreciation Week. These tiny but mighty mammals are a vital part to our environment. The British Hedgehog Preservation Society giving a shout out to these small but mighty mammals as they play an outsized role in biodiversity. That's because hedgehogs act as natural pest control for gardens and crops by snacking on snails and slugs. While there are 15 species of hedgehogs, the UK only has one. Sadly, hedgehog numbers in the UK have fallen sharply in recent years due to a variety of factors, including habitat loss and busy roads. Ways to show appreciation include leaving a small gap in garden fences so hedgehogs can roam freely, avoiding pesticides, and leaving out a shallow dish of fresh water. Fun fact, hedgehogs can swim and even climb trees. But you might know hedgehogs already from the entertainment world, where Sonic the Hedgehog vaults the nocturnal mammal to hero status, complete with super speed and a mission to save Earth. That's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.